Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, very good afternoon. We are online in Zoom, but also in YouTube. We are very happy to see you all today. Thank you all for joining us. Today's topic will be Nicholas Roerich in India. And this topic we are doing from the Odessa Roerich House Museum and also from the Cultural Association Roerich Center in the Netherlands. Before we set off to India, I just want to let you know that now you can ask any question you have using the chat in YouTube and also in Zoom. Also, for those who are joining us in Zoom, you can raise your hand, and so we will be able to switch on your microphone. So let us begin. I would like to invite Ekaterina Lyakhova, Dr. Ekaterina Lyakhova. She is the scientific researcher of Odessa Roerich House Museum, and she is also director of the Cultural Association Roerich Center in the Netherlands. So, Ekaterina, please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning. So we will talk today about Nicholas Roerich and his connection to India. And let me start with sharing my screen. Can you see my screen, and is it the right screen?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, wonderful. So we will be talking today about Nicholas Roerich and India. But of course, before we start that, we would like to say a couple of words about Nicholas Roerich. We will explore life the prominent Russian artist, scientist, traveler, public figure, writer, thinker, Nicholas Roerich. He was born 1874 and passed away in 1947. His magnificent Himalayan landscapes have captured the hearts of people all over the world. Special attention will be given, of course, to the role of India in Nicholas Roerich's life. We will also discuss today Nicholas Roerich's works, which he created during his life in India, and this is more than 20 years. From the list of his activities, you can see how extraordinary was the life of this man. We can mention that it was in every area his achievements were highly recognized. Also, all his creative activities were parts of his philosophy, his world outlook, which he followed all his everyday life. Nicholas Roerich's sayings about the beautiful are famous, and I would like to cite here his words. Even the earthy people already understand the vital importance of a beauty that is alive. And when we proclaim labor, beauty, and action, we know verily that we pronounce the formula of the international language. And this formula, which now belongs to museum and stage, must enter into everyday life. The sign of beauty and action will open all gates. Beneath the sign of beauty, we will walk joyfully. With beauty and labor, we conquer. In beauty, we are united. And now we affirm these words, not on the snowy heights, but among the turmoil of the city. And realizing the path of true reality, we greet the future with a happy smile. This is these words are from the article of Nicholas Roerich, Beautiful Unity. Talking about Nicholas Roerich, we should also very briefly mention, of course, members of his family, because every member of his family was truly remarkable. Here is Helena Ruli. She was philosopher, writer, translator. Nicholas Roerich dedicated his paintings with the title She Who Leads to his wife. He said that his creation should be signed by the two names, female and male. And Helena Ruli was also the one who wrote down books which are also known as living ethics. And we will talk about this teaching later. Their older son, George Roerich, was a prominent Russian Orientalist, Tibetologist, philologist, art critic, ethnographer, and traveler. He is known for his monumental translation of Blue Annals, work which is dedicated to Tibetan history of Tibetan Buddhism. He has also created a monumental 11-volume Tibetan, Russian, English, Sanskrit dictionary. The youngest son of Nicholas and Helena Ruli was Sviatoslav Rerich. He was an artist, scientist, and public figure. His life was very closely connected to India. He spent most of his life in India. He lived first in Nagar together with parents and then in Bangalore. He was married in 1945 to an Indian famous movie star Devika Rani Rurikh, grandniece of Rabindranath Tagore. His art is truly showing to the whole world the beauty of India, beauty of Indian people. And Sviatoslav Rurikh is very famous as portraitist. His official portraits are very highly distinguished and recognized, and are positioned in really very high institutions. Before we set off in our trip to India, I would like to throw a light on Nicholas Roerich's legacy, and just to show you what for a versatile genius he was, and that he indeed can be compared to titans of the Renaissance. Without doubt, we should mention that, first of all, his artistic heritage. It consists of more than 7,000 paintings, monumental paintings like frescoes, mosaics, panel paintings, architectural projects, costumes, set designs. Nicholas Roerich painting can be found in the best museums of the world and in private collections. Nicholas Roerich collaborated a lot with theatre. For example, he participated in Russian seasons in Paris arranged by Sergei Diaghilev. His best known designs were for Borodin's opera Prince Igor. Later, Nicholas Roerich also collaborated with a famous composer, Igor Stravinsky, and together they created a truly masterpiece, Ballet of Rite of the Spring. Nicholas Roerich is a set designer, costume designer, and he was for this ballet he was also author of libretto. Nicholas Roerich's monumental heritage includes different frescoes, friezes, mosaics, architectural projects. Here on this slide you can see some examples. One of them did not survive, the left one, and the right one is now can be seen in Ukraine, in Почаев-Лавра. This is Christian monastery. Talking about his overall cultural heritage, we can mention the Rerich Pact for protection of world culture heritage during war and during time of peace. This is an international treaty in human history which is supposed to protect cultural values of humanity. The idea of Nicholas Roerich was supported by all prominent cultural figures of the world. We will talk about this later, and especially in relation to India. We can also mention his scientific heritage. It includes archaeological researches, ethnographical and botanical collection, also arrangement and participation in Central Asian expedition, and also foundation of Saraswati Himalayan Research Institute, Punjab, India. We'll be talking about this later in details. Nicholas Roerich wrote more than 27 volumes of poetry, articles, essays, letters to his friends, partners, disciples. His books were translated into many languages, and you can see on the slide number of English books published in different countries of the world. Nicholas Roerich was contributing a lot to the field of education. In Russia, he was a director of Imperial School of Society of Encouragement of Arts. In the United States, he founded the Master Institute of United Arts. Master Institute was an embodiment of a very new idea at that time. It united several different kinds of arts under the same roof: music, painting, sculpture, architecture, opera, ballet, and so on. Another idea was that arts should be united under the concept of beauty. And here again, I would like to quote from Nicholas Roerich's article, Beautiful Unity. Verily, art at its highest does not tolerate any conventionality nor violence. In the very foundations of beingness, being, lives the concept of beauty in all its power. We as builders do not deny nor reject. In beauty, we are united. Through beauty, we pray. With beauty, we conquer. These were just some highlights of Nicholas Roerich's heritage. Impressive, isn't it? So before we start talking about India, we would like to show you just very quickly highlights of his biography to explain at which age he basically arrived to India and which heritage he brought with him. So just very brief, some points in his biography. He was born in 1874 in St. Petersburg. He got a double education. He studied simultaneously in Academy of Art and in Department Law of St. Petersburg University. Here you can see on the slide, you can see diploma painting, The Messenger. A tribe has risen against the tribe. It was painted in 1897. It was immediately bought by Tretyakov, the famous Russian businessman and founder of Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow. So during his studentship, he was already elected as a member of Russian Archaeological Society. Nicholas Roerich was deeply interested in history of ancient Rus, and his series of his paintings were dedicated to life on ancient Slavs. But via this history of old Russia, Nicholas Roerich came to pan-human questions and to understanding of common human nature. In 1901, Nicholas Roerich married Helena Shapeshnikova. She grew up in an extremely highly educated and rich cultural tradition family, also very noble family. Helena Ruli knew Russian and European literature very well. She learned painting, photography, she studied music, she studied history of religion and philosophy. With particular interest, she studied works of such Indian philosophers as Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Rabindranath Tagore. In her letters, Helena Ruli once said that Ramakrishna and Vivekananda were her first teachers in Eastern philosophy. You can see on the slide also words of Nicholas Roerich dedicated to his wife. To Helena, my wife, friend, companion, inspirer. So in early 90s, since very beginning of their married life together, Nicholas Roerich and Helena Ruli traveled in old Russian cities, and they visited more than 400 cities. This trip resulted in a huge series of artist painting, but also it brought Nicholas Roerich to the idea of necessity of protection of these old masterpieces. And later, this idea would develop in the first international treaty for protection of cultural values known as Roerich Pact. In 1906, Nicholas Roerich got a position of director of major art school in Russia, the School of Imperial Society of Encouragement of Art. Roerich's energy and organizational ability resulted in the fact that in few years, school became one of the biggest democratic educational institutions of country. Nicholas Roerich dedicated to academic programs, classes, for general artistic educations, music, choir, and other directions. So basically in his first Russian school, he already applied the idea of united arts. He was an extremely active and busy person. Besides painting, he was participating in different projects, mosaics, frescoes, theatrical works, archaeological excavations. He wrote a lot of articles, and he was a member of a big number of different societies. Also, he was running the school as a director. I would like to mention that he was also highly recognized and distinguished person. Besides all his artistic and academic achievements, he had extremely high position in society. Just before First World War, he got a title of actual state chancellor, which also corresponded to title of Major General. So people had to address him as His Excellency. And here come last years in Russia. You know, of course, that in 1970, big changes happened in Russia. October Revolution happened. But just before October Revolution in 1916, Nicholas Roerich, together with his family, had to go to Finland, which was back then a part of Russia, just because of Nicholas Roerich had a serious lung disease, and it was doctor's recommendations. But in 1970, Finland separated from Russia and closed its border with Russia. So Nicholas Roerich and his family found themselves cut off from their motherland. And so their travel began. So first they received an invitation from Sweden, participating in exhibitions in Stockholm. Later, together with Sergei Diaghilev, they worked in London for Russian operas in London. But they had always a dream to go to India. In London, a first remarkable meeting occurred. Nicholas Roerich met Rabindranath Tagore. Interestingly enough, during this visit, Nicholas Roerich was working on several Indian works, just in the moment when Tagore came to visit him. As Nicholas Roerich wrote, there was no possibility of meeting with Tagore. Strangely, such things happen in life. In London, the poet found us. Then in America, we succeeded in meeting him in New York, and he also met George in Boston. But in India itself, we did not meet. We could not go to Bolpur, and Tagore could not come to Kolkata. He was already preparing his tour to China. So Roerich's family was planning to go to India, as it was their many years' dream, but their plans had to change. The most important meeting of Roerich's family life, maybe you could say so, took place March 1920 in Hyde Park in London. There they met with Indian Mahatmas, or as I call them, Himalayan philosophers. These were the same Mahatmas who were introduced to Western world by Helena Blavatsky and Theosophy. These are same Mahatmas whose letters addressed to British writer and publisher Alfred Sinnett can be found in Library of British Museum in London. Later, Sviatoslav Roerich would describe these people as more perfect people. People who passed the path of perfection much further than average mankind. Little is known about this meeting, but we can definitely mention that Mahatmas told Roerichs about their mission first in the United States and then in Asia. And the whole further life of Roerich family went in cooperation and collaboration with Himalayan Mahatmas. And this is very important to keep in mind. So plans had changed, and instead of going to India, Roerich should go to United States. Seemingly accidental, Nicholas Roerich got an invitation from director of Chicago Institute of Arts to organize big exhibition tour around 30 cities of United States. Later in 1923, Nicholas Roerich Museum in New York opened its doors. It contained a richest collection of artist paintings, more than thousands of them. Opening ceremony took place 24 March 1923. The museum united a wide number of cultural organizations, Master Institute of United Arts, exhibition halls, concert halls, studio for artists, theater, library, even apartments for artists. The Rurichs later presented to the museum their collection of Tibetan bronze and Indian art and unique manuscripts.
So finally, in 1923, the master's cherished dream came true. On December 2nd, Nicholas Roerich and his family arrived to India. Here I would like to show you the places which Nicholas Roerich visited. But most important, I would like to quote what he said about those beautiful places. What kind of ideas and thoughts came to him while he was visiting those Indian cities? As Nicholas Roerich said, "O Bharata the beautiful, let me send thee my heartfelt admiration for all the greatness and inspiration that which fill thy ancient wisdom, for glorious cities and temples, thy sacred rivers and majestic Himalayas." Nicholas Roerich and his family arrived to Bombay and started their discovery of India visiting Elephanta Island. They were absorbed by ancient India culture. As Nicholas Roerich said, in India, when the verses of Mahabharata, the Upanishads, the Puranas are being recited, then there is joy despite all troubles. And even if the modernization of India is inevitable, the beauty of such sacred poetry will live on forever. This inner joy of the heart is something that we have to cultivate and learn how to retain so that it takes up its abode in the heart. And this beneficent joy of the heart becomes a lasting power to disperse all the forces of darkness. Whether we think of those sublime temples of southern India, of the grandeur of Chittor and Gwalior, and the great strongholds of Rajputana, or the solemn spirit of Himalayas, everywhere we shall find the joy of great thoughts. After Bombay, they visited Jaipur, Agra, Sarnath, digging into the atmosphere of ancient history, architecture, and manuscripts. As Nicholas Roerich wrote, I quote again, "You listen to the reading of Bhagavad Gita, you hear the exclamation of the Buddhist service of the temples, you listen to the singing of the choir. Does there not appear before you the one image, the one common will toward happiness and joy, to the unity of the consciousness, embracing and conquering, to the exalting and enlightening Aum?" The next step was Varanasi and Calcutta. And again, I would like to quote here from the Roerich's travel diary. In Calcutta, not far behind the city, are two monuments to Ramakrishna. On one shore, Dakshineshwar, the temple where long-lived Ramakrishna. Also opposite, across the river, is the mission of Ramakrishna, the mausoleum of the teacher himself, of his wife, of Vivekananda, and a collection of many memorable objects. Vivekananda dreamed that here should be a real Hindu university. Vivekananda took care of this place. There is a great peace here, and it is with difficulty that one realizes oneself so near to Kolkata, with all the terror of its bazaar and confusion. On the memorable day of Ramakrishna, as many as 500,000 of his admirers gathered there. In less than 1 month, Roerich covered over 3,000 kilometers in India. On their way, they had a lot of meetings with prominent Indian scientists, artists, writers, the secretary of Bengal Society of Artists, Gaganendranath Tagore, famous scientist Jagadish Chandra Bose, scientist and agriculturist Boshi Sen, the disciple and successor of Vivekananda's work. And traveling further to the north, Nicholas Roerich and his wife and his son George visited the ancient city of Farihpur Sikri. That's what you can see on your photo right now. As Nicholas Roerich wrote in his book Altai Himalayas, all the remains of the construction of Akbar have a veil of seeming sadness. Here, the great unifier of his country viewed his best visions, so misunderstood by his contemporaries. In Farihpur Sikri, he conversed with his wise Birbal and with the few who had attained his level. Here he built the temple of universal knowledge. Here he lost his few friends and foresaw that the welfare of the state created by him would not be preserved. And Agra and Farihpur Sikri are full of a kind of limitless sorrow. Akbar knew how the well-being which he bestowed on his people would be pillaged. Perhaps he already knew how the last emperor of India would live to the middle of the 19th century, peddling the furniture of his palace and chipping from the walls of his palace in Delhi the fragments of mosaics, unquote. In the end of December 1923, the Roerich stopped in a small principality of Sikkim, not far away from the city of Darjeeling, on the southern slopes of Himalayas. As Nicholas Roerich wrote in his book, The Heart of Asia, let us begin with Sikkim. This blessed country, full of reminiscences of the illumined leaders of religions, leaves an impression of great calmness. Here lived Padmasambhava, the founder of the Red Cap sect, Atisha, who proclaimed the teaching of Kalachakra, crossed his country on his way to Tibet. Here in the caves dwelt many ascetics, filling space with their powerful thoughts. Behind Kanchenjunga, in subterranean caves, still live hermits, and only a trembling hand stretched out for food is answer to a prearranged knock indicates that the physical body is still alive. All 17 peaks of the Himalayas shine above Sikkim. Here you can see a beautiful photos from that time. On this photo, you can see from on the right side, Sviatoslav Roerich and Nicholas Roerich, and 1924. And as Helena Ruli wrote in her letter, the Tibetans called our home Talai Pobrang, the Dalai Lama Palace, because the 13th Dalai Lama lives there. Another very interesting quotation from the book Heart of Asia by Nicholas Roerich. In these places, many things seemingly strange to the European appear quite natural. Recently in Darjeeling, a strange episode took place with an old lama. During a disorder in the street, the lama and casual spectator was arrested by the police together with the guilty agitators of the disorder. The lama did not protest and together with all the others was sentenced to a certain term of imprisonment. When the term was over and lama was to be released, he asked permission to remain in the prison because it was quiet and most suitable for the concentration. Here you can see a photo from that time. That's Nicholas Roerich and his younger son, Sviatoslav Roerich, in Darjeeling, 1924, both dressed in Buddhist robe. In 1924, together with his family, Nicholas Roerich visited the ancient monasteries of Sikkim, Tasheding, Pemayagantse, Sangha Choling, Darling, Robling. At that time, he created several series of paintings, such as his country, Banners of the East, and he also created a lot of sketches. Here on the photos, you see those monasteries and the time when they were really ancient ones. This is the modern pictures, of course, but the monasteries itself, they are very, very old. In 1924, September 22nd, Nicholas Roerich, together, no, sorry, on February 12, 1924, Nicholas Roerich wrote to his co-workers in New York, I quote, "I'm now painting the picture Pearl of Searches, two young Tibetans threading pearl on behind them is a thread of curling clouds, and above is the thread of snowy mountains. The world is striving to the searches," unquote. And then comes the preparation to the Central Asian expedition on February 12th, in September 22nd, 1924. Nicholas Roerich, together with his youngest son, Sviatoslav Roerich, left India from Marseille, France, on the boat of Macedonia ship. They also visited Paris, and also 1924, October 24, together with Sviatoslav Roerich, they arrived to New York. And later in December, he got permission to conduct the expedition under the American flag. And on December 10, 1924, on the ship Paris, he left America for Europe. On the way back to India, he visits Germany and also then Egypt, Ceylon, Madras, and Calcutta. Here you can see the photo of Nicholas Roerich in Adyar during his visit to headquarters of Theosophical Society. Photo made in 1925, just after he arrived back to India. On January 17th, 1925, the ceremony of the recently founded Adyar Art Center. In the ceremony of the recently found Adyar Art Center, Nicholas Roerich himself unveiled the painting depicting a Buddhist temple from within, which a woman opened the door to admit the messenger. Here you can see on the picture two versions of these paintings. The messenger from 1924, the one which was presented in Adyar, and the later one from 1946. While presenting the painting, Nicholas Roerich said, I quote, "In the home of lights, let me present this picture of the messenger, dedicated to Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, as the nucleus of a future Blavatsky museum, whose motto shall be, 'Beauty is the garment of truth.'" Talking about the Theosophical Society and Theosophy here, we should also mention one more thing. An exceptional knowledge of foreign languages and a deep understanding of philosophy allowed Helena Roerich to translate into Russian the Secret Doctrine, an outstanding work by Helena Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society. Helena Roerich also translated selected letters of Mahatmas. The book is called The Chalice of the East. This allowed Russian language readers to become acquainted with such important theosophical works. So we come back to the Central Asian expedition. The first 2 years in India were actually the first part of this expedition. The second and most difficult part was just about to begin. On March 6, 1925, Nicholas Roerich, together with his wife and the elder son, George, went to Kashmir. They stayed in Srinagar until August 1925. And here you can see the beautiful photos of them on the boat in Srinagar in Kashmir. And here I also would like to quote from Nicholas Roerich expedition diary. Kashmir is full of antiques. Here is Martand and Avantipur, connected with the flourishing of the activity of King Avantisvamin. Here are many ruins of temples and cities of the 6th, 7th, and 8th centuries, in which the architectural detail surprises one by its similarity to the early Romanesque. Of the Buddhist time, almost nothing has survived in Kashmir, although here lived such pillars of the old Buddhism as Nagarjuna, Asvaghosha, Rakshita, and many others, who afterwards suffered during the change from Buddhism to Hinduism. Here is the throne of Solomon, and on the same summit, the foundation of the temple laid by the son of King Ashoka, unquote. In August-September 1925, the Central Asian expedition is in Ladakh. Besides purely scientific goals, the expedition pursued an important evolutionary task. Nicholas Roerich, not only as an artist, but also as a scientist, was interested in a number of problems related to ancient great transmigration of peoples. He also searched for a common source of Slavic and Indian cultures. Another quotation from his book, Heart of Asia. I quote, in Lear, so you see the pictures from Lear. So in Lear, we again encountered the legend of Christ's visit to these parts. The Hindu postmaster of Lear and several Ladakh Buddhists told us that in Lear, not far from the bazaar, there still exists a pond near which stood an old tree. Under this tree, Christ preached to the people before his departure to Palestine. We also heard another legend of how Christ, when young, arrived in India with merchants' caravan, and how he continued to study the higher wisdom in the Himalayas. We heard several versions of this legend, which has spread widely throughout Ladakh, Xinjiang, and Mongolia. But all versions agree on one point, that during the time of his absence, Christ was in India and in Asia. It does not matter how and from where the legend originated. Perhaps it is of Nestorian origin. It is valuable to see that the legend is told in full sincerity. The entire atmosphere of Ladakh seemed to be under benevolent signs for us, unquote. Later, they left India, and the expedition's challenging itinerary further ran through China, Russia, including Moscow, Siberia, Altai, Mongolia, Tibet, unstudied areas of Trans-Himalayas. Here you can also see some photos from that part of the expedition. On the right side, you can see Nicholas Roerich with where he keeps the Buddhist Tangha, depicted future Buddha of Maitreya. The expedition went through many places which were never before visited by Europeans or Americans. They crossed the wall of Trans-Himalayas through the Sangmo-Bertik Pass, which is 6,100 meters. And I just want to mention here about the last months of the expedition, because they were really dramatic. On September 24, 1927, the expedition reached the border of Tibet. And for another 30 days, the travelers moved through the territory of Tibet until October 6 in the Shendi Valley. They were stopped by a large detachment of Tibetan militia. They wanted to reach Lhasa, but the Tibetan general, after receiving instruction from Lhasa, did not give the expedition permission to proceed further. It was one of the most difficult moments in the trip. The expedition was kept for 5 months in a snow prison high in the mountains on the Chantang Plateau. The temperature was sometimes minus 60 degrees Celsius, and they had only summer tents. Local residents were not allowed to sell food to them. Out of 110 animals of the caravan, 90 died due to lack of food. 5 locals of the expedition also died. At the end, the expedition was transferred to Nakchu, and after a month of negotiation, they were allowed to proceed to India. Further along the course of the Brahmaputra River, through the Sharula Pass to the Pongchu Valley, expedition arrived in Gantok, the capital of Sikkim. In total, the length of the expedition route was about 10,000 kilometers.
Of course, talking about Central Asian expedition is topic for itself. Maybe one day we would like to prepare such lecture. But here we talk about it quite shortly. After expedition, Nicholas Roerich bought an estate and settled in Nagar in Kulu Valley. In his article, Gods of Kuluta, Nicholas Roerich wrote, "The secret Kulu Valley lies hidden in the border of Lahore and Tibet, forming the most northern part of Punjab. Whether this was Aryavarsha or Aryavarta, it's difficult to say. But the most significant names and events have gathered in this beautiful valley. It is called Silver Valley. Whether in winter when the snowy cover sparkles, or in spring when all the fruits trees are covered with snowy white blossoms, the valley equally well merits this name. In the ancient place, they have there 360 gods, among them also Gautama Rishi, dedicated to Buddhism, which is known to have been here for ages. Here is also Akbar the Great, the statue in the Malana temple, and all teachers and heroes who by sword and spirit won the great battles." So basically this estate in Kulu was last place where Nicholas Roerich stayed in India, because here in this estate he passed away. I had the happiness to visit this place, and now it is functioning as museum, and it's managed together in a collaboration between Indian government and Russian government. On ground floor, you can see a museum of Nicholas Roerich paintings, Sviatoslav Roerich paintings. I was really amazed by amount of Indian people who were visiting this place and expressing their happiness to see paintings of Nicholas Roerich and his love to Himalayas and the way he actually cherished the secret mountains. Nicholas Roerich dedicated some of his paintings to this beautiful Kulu Valley, or he was calling this Kuluta. Here you can see one of his photos in Kulu, and back to him stands a statue, one of the famous Kulu gods, Guga Chokhan. And next to it, you can see a picture of Nicholas Roerich, where he painting of where he depicts Guga Chokhan. During Central Himalayan expedition, there were collected truly priceless collections, and remarkable scientific discoveries were made. In order to further study these materials and also to create a scientific center in the north of India, the Himalayan Research Institute Urusvati was founded July 24, 1928. Nicholas Roerich wrote, "Urusvati, the abode of research and abode of science, is to be built in Himalayas, within boundaries of ancient Aryavarta. Again, in human spirit, purified by continuous currents of the Himalayas, will search in untiring labor." Yeah, you can see here that studies were run here in different directions. As you could say, nowadays, these were both beta and alpha sciences, archaeology, ethnography, linguistics, but also physics, astronomy, meteorology, biochemistry. So this was a really very serious combined scientific institution. Here you can see a list of the number of laboratories and departments which were created in Urusvati Institute. We can state that Urusvati Institute realized a very novel idea of the project-oriented studies, where scientists from different institutions and different parts of the world would come to the Himalayan center and work on common topic. Nowadays, this way of working is widely applied, but for that time it was very novel. You can see that there were biochemical studies performed. Also, it is widely known that in Kulu Valley, number of cancer diseases was diminishing small, and studying this unique situation and understanding conditions which led to this proportion was also conducted in this center. Of course, this region was also famous for its unique pharmacology, combining Tibetan knowledge, old knowledge, and Western scientists were very interested to learn this old knowledge. So this center combined, really truly combined approaches of East and West. Urusvati conducted joint projects with Archaeological Institute in New York, National Museum of Natural History in Paris, Jagadish Bose Institute, Asiatic Society in Bengal, Mahabodhi Society in Calcutta, Vishwa Bharati University, and many others. Rabindranath Tagore, Radha Krishnan, Louis de Broglie, Sven Geding, Albert Einstein, Ralph Millikan, Nicholas Vavilov were among the outstanding figures who closely collaborated with Urusvati Institute. You can also see here a journal, a periodic journal, which was published by this institute. Institute was also organizing some trips, expeditions, and also had northern in higher mountains center in Manali. In London, 1920, Helena Ruli started writing down the first lines of Living Ethics, the new philosophic system representing a modern integral concept of real cosmos and universe. The Living Ethics books were created by Helena Ruli in close collaboration with a group of philosophers, wise men, who were usually called Mahatmas, great souls, or Rishis, teachers, in spiritual tradition of India. This teaching is also called Agni Yoga, and first book was published in 1924. The last book published during Helena Roerich's life, Brotherhood, was published in 1937. The manuscript of book Supermandian was completed by Helena Ruli in 1947 and first published early 90s. We mentioned here about the teaching of living ethics because Saraswati Himalayan Research Institute in Kulu Valley, the Rerichs, continued their collaboration with Himalayan philosophers and Himalayan Mahatmas in creation Agni Yoga books. What is Agni Yoga? It is continuation of the ancient philosophy of all times. It is a new aspect of the one eternal truth. This teaching is intended for people of new era. This is a moral and spiritual teaching that combines the ancient wisdom of the East and scientific and philosophical achievement of West. By the revealing of wide possibilities and resources of man, the hidden energies of his body and soul, the creative forces of his consciousness, the teaching of living ethics affirms the connection of man with the universe and multidimensionality of being and secret of immortality. The double name of teaching Agni Yoga or living ethics indicate two main aspects of human development: ethical transformation, accept of moral foundation of being, and mastery of psychic or secret or inner energy. Helena Ruli also wrote, Agni Yoga is synthesis of all yogas. In all ancient Hindu scriptures, the approaching fiery era has been predicted. It is said that Agni is a fire that is found in varying degrees at foundation of all yogas, will saturate the atmosphere of our planet tremendously, and all the branches of yoga will be fused into fiery synthesis. Verily, Agni Yoga is fiery baptism. Agni Yoga explains such principles as karma, reincarnation, and one of the most important statements is the unity of all religions, philosophers, their common origin, as well as scenting of human evolution. In all aspects of self-improvement, and we would like to say that self-improvement is called a main goal of human life. Konstantin already mentioned the painting series Banners of Peace. It was created by Nicholas Roerich in 1924-1925, when he just arrived to India. The series consists of 19 paintings showing great philosophers, founders of religions of different times. So you could say that art of Nicholas Roerich was truly part of living ethics, and especially you can see this on this series. Nicholas Roerich wrote in his article, "The People's Soul." It is apparent that one may present endless unquestioned examples in countries small and great of the unfailing judgment of the people's soul. In those memories, a brilliant procession of exponents of countries, of epochs, and of human spirit are constructed. These spokesmen shall be varied according to their time or station, according to circumstances which surrounded them, but some unquestionable contribution to our planet is evinced in the choice of these creative, glorious names and concepts. These names have already emerged beyond the bounds of personalities, and they have already become universal concepts of synthesis. They are not so few, and they are the treasury of the planet, the treasury of creative heroic achievement, truly beautiful. The exponents of countries, peoples, with their synthesis, their breath, and like the snow-clad peaks of Himalayas, unimpeded by obstacle, they send greetings to one another in ray of light. In the days of cultural festivity, all these exponents of the finest aspiration of people who inscribed their aspiration in labor and heroic action who suffered and did not falter, will thus become the true adornment of the planet. They are the refuge of people's heart in its pain and anguish of truth. Will not these exponents of the people help to transmute the anguish and pain of quest into festivity of heroic action? Upon completeness of a Central Asian expedition in 1928, Nicholas Roerich made an appeal to all states and public and cultural figures to immediately begin discussing the issues of protecting cultural heritage. He suggested a special international treaty for protection of cultural values, which later will be called Roerich's Pact. As a result of many years of international cooperation and collaboration, in April 15, 1935, the Roerich Pact was signed by nations of North and South Americas, members of Pan-American Union, in White House in Washington. Nicholas Roerich suggested that flag would be flown over all places under its protection. This flag is called Banner of Peace. The sign of banner shows 3 spheres surrounded by a circle in magenta color on the white background. The symbol of Banner of Peace is a very ancient one. It doesn't belong to any particular tradition or religion. So it's a universal symbol. That's why Nicholas Roerich used it, this unified symbol for Banner of Peace. Idea of Roerich Pact states that all historic monuments, museums, scientific organizations should be covered by Banner of Peace and should be considered as neutral and protected as such during wartime, but also during time of peace. Nicholas Roerich is stating that the power of spirit that is contained in great creation of human genius are carrying the uplifting power. It should show all the people who are capable to connect to this spiritual treasure the direction in which humanity should move, from the material values to spiritual values, from values of civilization to values of culture. And these thoughts imply the great responsibility of any artist or scientist for their creations, as their creations live in the world and influence people. In 1946, the pact was supported by All Indian Conference of Cultural Unity, and in 1948 it was adopted by the government of India, headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. Swami Jagadish the eminent Indian religious leader, wrote in his message to Banner of Peace Convention, this is a quote, Nicholas Roerich, the academician, founder and driver of unique humanitarian movement, is the soul of the world art and culture. Dr. Cousins currently recognized him as spiritually of the Himalayas, because he is actually the prophet of the new humanity and messenger of the new world culture. Roerich is our chief, who started the new significant chapter in the history of mankind by setting up a movement of pact and Banner of Peace. As I mentioned, India supported the idea of Nicholas Roerich of the necessity of protection of cultural values. Many people supported this idea. And several publications at that time were done in India and were dedicated to the Roerich Pact. What you can see here is a reprinted version of Mahabodhi journal article dedicated to Roerich Pact, which is called Roerich the Peacemaker. Here is another brochure which is reprinted from Special Peace section of scholar Anneler in 1933. An article of Secretary of Nicholas Roerich, Shibaev, also dedicated to Rerich Pact, is published in Lahore, 1939, and later in 1936 in Calcutta, another article reprinted from Mahabodhi Society journal called Rerich Pact. In this book, Nicholas Roerich Pact is directly called Red Cross of Culture. It's very often that this pact and this initiative is called like that. So we would like to point out that India was among the cities, the countries which supported the idea of Nicholas Roerich and joined the Roerich Pact. So here we also would like to mention some of Nicholas Roerich's major books which were published in India during his lifetime. This is Beautiful Unity, Diary Leaves, and also Abode of Light. Diary Leaves of Nicholas Roerich is truly an extraordinary book. Here Nicholas Roerich is writing a short essays based on his thoughts and news that he is receiving. He writes about people who come to his attention. But these essays, people facts, are considered from the unique standpoint of view of great philosopher and humanist.
Nicholas Roerich knew and collaborated with quite a number of outstanding Indian artists, scientists, and also public figures. One of those figures was the First Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. Here you can see the photos of Nicholas Roerich and Indira Gandhi, and also Sviatoslav Roerich and Jawaharlal Nehru. So Jawaharlal Nehru, together with his daughter Indira Gandhi, visited Roerich in their estate in Nagar in 1942. Here is what Jawaharlal Nehru wrote about Nicholas Roerich, and I quote, "When I think of Nicholas Roerich, I'm astounded at the scope and abundance of his activities and creative genius. A great artist, a great scholar and writer, archaeologist and explorer, he touched and lighted up so many aspects of human endeavor. The very quantity is stupendous. Thousands of paintings, and each one of them a great work of art. When you look at these paintings, so many of them of the Himalayas, you seem to catch the spirit of those great mountains which have towered over the Indian plain and been our sentinels for ages past. They remind us of so much in our history, our thoughts, our cultural and spiritual heritage. So much not merely of the India of the past, but of something that is permanent and eternal about India, that we cannot help feeling a great sense of indebtedness to Nicholas Roerich, who has enshrined that spirit in these magnificent canvases," unquote. While in India, yeah, here you can see another unique photo of Nicholas Roerich, and here also Sviatoslav Roerich and Indira Gandhi, also taken with all, of course, all the people came to meet them in 1942. While in India, I was also to mention here that that's not only Nicholas Roerich. We are talking today about Nicholas Roerich, but also his son was, as we mentioned in the beginning, he was a very famous portraitist. And those two portraits of, because we are talking about Nehru and Indira Gandhi, so those two portraits are now in the Indian Parliament. And now, while in India, Nicholas Roerich created over 1,500 paintings or sketches united in the Himalayas series. The artist depicted magnificent mountain peaks in the glow of dawn and sunset colors, covered with sparkling snow and directed into the blue of the clear sky. As Nicholas Roerich wrote, I quote, "Himalayas, here is the abode of rishis. Here resounded the sacred flute of Krishna. Here thundered the blessed Gautam Buddha. Here originated all Vedas. Here lived Pandavas. Here Gesarghan. Here Aryavarta. Here is Shambhala. Himalayas, jewel of India. Himalayas, treasure of the world. Himalayas, the sacred symbol of ascent." Unquote. Nicholas Roerich dedicated many paintings to Lord Krishna. In his article Gods of Kuluta, he wrote, I quote, "Many paintings in this Silver Valley, the great shepherd called to life all living beings by the silvery sounds of his flute. He calls toward joy, and the apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees, and plum trees respond in their enthusiasm of blossoming. The willow tree opens its fluffy blossoms, apricot tree turns lilac, and vigilant nut tree unfolds in rich yellow. And as a healing nectar flows the aromatic sap of the deodars. Under the apple tree, covered with rose-colored blossom, the eternal Krishna, on his silver flute, plays his divine song of regeneration." Unquote. We have some. I know that we have some Indians watching us right now, and when I normally I show this painting to my Indian friends and asking what is it, and they immediately say, "Hey, this is Radha and Krishna depicted together." But it is in fact not. Russian and Indian motifs sounds with equal force in Nicholas Roerich works, not contradicting each other but enriching each other. In Roerich's deepest conviction, the great mountain range of Altai Himalaya does not separate but unites two countries, India and Russia. Nicholas Roerich believed there is a close relationship between Indian and Russian people. The similar character of their origins, as Roerich believes, predetermines the same destiny in the very near future. He draws attention to the consonance of the images of folk art. The Russian old pagan character, which is called Lel, immediately evokes in his memory the hero of the ancient world, Lord Krishna, whom the Indian tradition portrays as a young shepherd playing the flute. Here you can see that this is actually one of the Nicholas Roerich paintings. Can you please click? Which is called Snow Maiden and Lel from 1921. As Nicholas Roerich wrote, I quote, "One recalled the great Krishna, benevolent shepherd, and involuntarily compared him with ancient images of Slavs. Lel, a shepherd resembling in every way his Hindu prototype. One recalled the song in honor of Krishna and the gopis and compared them with the song of Lel and the choral dances of the Slavs." Unquote. Another one Nicholas Roerich also dedicated some of his paintings to the Gautama Buddha or Lord Buddha. And here we can see one of these paintings, which is called Two Chalices, or Buddha the Giver. And another one is called the Blessed One, or Panacea. And according to the latest information we have, it's used to be in the collection of Mahabodhi Memorial Library, at the library of Mulakanda Kuti Vihara in Sarnath. And unfortunately now the traces of this painting is lost. So while you're looking at this beautiful painting, I'd like to quote from Nicholas Roerich's book, Heart of Asia. In the ceremonies of Vedism, Buddhism, and Mazdaism, the sacred symbol of the chalice of life is utilized everywhere. Jataka tells the origin of chalice of Buddha. Then, from the four lands came four guardians of the world and offered chalices made of sapphire. But Buddha refused them. Again, they offered four chalices made of black stone, Muggavana, and he, full of compassion for the four Guinea, accepted the four chalices. He placed one into the other and ordained, "Let there be one." And the edges of the four chalices become visible as outlines. All the chalices formed one. The Buddha accepted food in the newly formed chalice, and having partaken of the food, he offered thanks. Lalita Vistara, describing the sacraments of the chalice of Buddha, attributes to the Blessed One the following significant address to the king who brought the chalices. Pay thy respect to Buddha in the name of the chalice, and the chalice shall be the sea, to see as a vessel of knowledge. If thou wilt offer the chalice to thy peers, thou wilt not remain either in memory nor in judgment. But who offers the chalice to Buddha will not be forgotten either in memory or wisdom. This chalice, the ark of life, the chalice of salvation, must be discovered soon again. Thus they know in the deserts. Unquote. India for Nicholas Roerich became the second motherland. That can be clearly traced from many of his articles and paintings he dedicated to India. Let me quote again from Nicholas Roerich's book, Altai Himalaya. India, I know thy sorrows, but I shall remember thee with the same joyous tremor as the first flower on the spring meadow. From thy Brahmins we shall select the greatest who understood the Vedic wisdom. We shall select the Raja who strove for the finding of the path of truth. We shall notice Vaishya and Shudra who have exalted their craft and labor for the upliftment of the world. India, we know the depths and finesse of thy thoughts. We know the great Aum, which leads to the inexpressible heights. We know thy great guiding spirits. India, we know thy ancient wisdom, thy sacred scriptures in which is outlined the past, the present and the future. And we shall remember thee with the same tremor as the most precious first flower on the spring meadow, unquote. Sorry. Nicholas Roerich never gave up thoughts of coming back to his country, to Russia, and that time to Soviet Union. Right after the end of the war, the artist applied for a visa to enter the Soviet Union, but his intentions were not to be realized. In the full swing of preparations, on December 13, 1947, he passed away in Naga in India. In his Samadhi place, facing magnificent snow peaks, a big rectangular stone was installed by the local people on which the following inscription was carved. Here, on December 15, 1947, the body of Maharishi Nicholas Roerich, a great Russian friend of India, was committed to fire. Om Ram. Dear friends, that's actually was our presentation of just the highlights of Nicholas Roerich engagements with India. We hope that if you have any more questions about this, I think you can check this. You can learn this from the books we mentioned, from the Nicholas Roerich book about which we mentioned in the beginning. We would like to thank you again for joining us today here in Zoom and also on our channel in YouTube. Please let's stay in touch. If you have any question, please you can visit our website rorichcenter.nl or Odessa Roerich House Museum. Hello, Petra. Otherwise, let's keep in touch and I wish you a nice weekend.